Oh, I thought you tried. Sorry. That's okay. I missed it. I'm blind. Some people don't want to their attorney. Just keep the jokes going.
Really?
Well, and you. It's a pretty cool thing, yeah. Really cool. Yes, I do.
Okay, at this time, I'll call the Richmond Township Planning Commission meeting to order. And we'll entertain a motion or comments on the July 29th monthly meeting. Everybody have a chance to review? Ben's here.
I did. We only had 3 of us.
Okay, Ben has moved and Matt, you seconded it?
Sure.
Okay, we have a motion and second to approve the minutes. Any discussion or question? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Minutes approved. Okay, do we have anybody in the audience that has any discussion that's on the agenda this evening, on items that are on the agenda this evening? Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi. State your name and which agenda you want.
Okay, my name is Rebecca Stern, and I'd like to talk about your old business, the Northeast Products.
Okay,
There would be more here tonight, but there's people on vacation and soccer, not like a whole room full, but some neighbors. This is for the property at 604 Crisscross Road. I read your May minutes. Obviously, I didn't read the ones you're talking about now, so I might not have all the information. My concerns with, back in October of 2020, your minutes state that it was in December when there was a zoning meeting. It was actually October, because we were there, and a couple other neighbors, when they requested an expansion back then. All 3 requests were denied. You mentioned that the lighting was approved. That was not the case. We were at the meeting. Brian shut it down. Everything, they wanted the expansion building-wise, and the lighting was shut down. There was a lot of talk about the lighting too, because it was going to be a lot of light pollution because their elevation is so much higher than ours. When I say ours, I'm on like a side of them. So their property is here. Our houses are here. We're not the new development in Willow Crest. We're, what was the, Richmond Commons is our development. So we spoke back then. I played audio of what it's like to live next to the building now. It's still as loud as ever. It's actually louder because they installed an exhaust fan. Maybe last year. It sounds like a cement mixer going on for 8+ hours a day. So when I saw that they're talking about doing a large gravel yard, I got concerned. Because you're just opening it up for all kinds of permanent storage. They already have vehicles and trailers parked there. And I feel like the next step in a couple of years, we're like, oh, let's just put some macadam down. You know, we have this, let's just continue. This is a residential neighborhood. They are a factory. Many, many moons ago, I'm sure you know, it used to be for snowmobiles and small engine repair, which was very quiet. So this has been loud for us for a handful of years. Sorry, I lost track of my notes. They have continually proceeded with land modifications. They installed before things have been totally approved. They put in shipping containers before their permits went through. They increased their footprint sizably with ground and gravel. There was some little pushback from Kraft at one point. I don't know how that ended up, but they were never like, I don't wanna say slap on the wrist and fined or anything like that. There was some testing for groundwater and whatnot way back when. So nothing seems to be stopping them from getting bigger. Now at their meeting, they actually, in October 2020, they actually said if they didn't get these approvals to increase the building, they would actually move. Well, they didn't move. So they're moving around just fine. I really would love you to consider this in your backyard. It was not as big as it is now. It was not noisy like it is. It is a factory. 8 hours a day. Keeping excavators unloading and loading their equipment. I understand they're a business. They've been allowed to be there, but please don't let it get any bigger. Please.
Okay, well, we've reviewed most of it, and they're limited to that space. I mean, they can't go any bigger. And that's all I can tell you, and I think if we have some of the things you mentioned, we need our zoning officer to check it out, see where the decimal point is for the noise and stuff like that. And they must comply with our zoning laws, so.
Crafts had said they didn't have a machine to read the decibels way back, last August, I think it was last August when I came to a meeting. It wasn't your meeting, I don't think it was your meeting, I think it was the other,
Supervisors.
maybe, I'm not sure. But there's talk of a screening and fencing along the residential sides of the property. I was curious how high, what they would look like. Would there be a zoning meeting for this to get approval? Or is it just a permit and then it's happening? Or
Well, if they comply with everything we asked them to do, which I think they so far have, I just read a letter, Berks County says complained about one thing we said about increased building size, but I don't think they did same thing we did. We didn't consider the little building.
Yeah, so this goes back to, and it's part of the review letter, the original operation. When they first applied for the 2020 application, actually before the zoning hearing application, they had submitted a plan, there was a review, there was some determinations there as far as what is the operation, and they had the main building, and this was part of our discussion at the last meeting. There was the main building, but there was also an outbuilding that was considered part of the overall footprint
That
for
would
that
come away.
operation. So
I'm
that
sorry?
was,
That would come away.
well, they are going to get rid of that outbuilding that's closer to the properties over where you're located. I don't know which one you are, but you're the Fleetwood properties,
Yeah.
right? So that was part of what they were gonna be removing, but that did count towards so they're an existing non-conforming use. So am I saying that right, Rob?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so per the ordinance, they are allowed to expand, but not as much as they were applying for in 2020. And that meeting was in October. They didn't put out the decision until December. That was that discrepancy there, that's all that was, but they didn't get authorization for the expansion of the building or the coverage that they were looking for. But they did, and I had to look at it, I couldn't remember exactly, there was a variance for relief from the lighting to allow less than 1 foot candle illumination on parking areas so as to ensure lighting does not exceed beyond property lines at excessive levels to create nuisance. So it was,
Okay,
their variance was to not meet that requirement at the property line
Okay,
or
my
on an
apologies.
area. And that was kind of the opposite of what you thought they were going for, so it was, I can
Okay,
understand.
they attempted variance here.
They did, yes.
Okay, I'm
They
a
were-
little lost there, okay.
They were at that 2020 meeting, it sounds like.
Okay.
I didn't remember the names in there other than the people that are applying. But, so that was all that came out of that hearing. All the other applications did get denied, which were well beyond that 50% expansion of the
Okay.
existing building. That is what they're pursuing now. And part of what we're doing here is reviewing that plan and going through the zoning, that's really what they're ultimately trying to find out is there any other zoning issues with what's being proposed, or can they proceed?
So they are wanting to add on to the building.
That's what they have in front of the township right now.
And I'm picturing the tractor trailers delivering the product and them driving down right behind our houses to come back up, because I imagine it's an impossibility. You know, I wouldn't want to be the tractor trailer driver delivering, but that's what I'm picturing. That's what we're picturing as neighbors, that,
And
that's what's being brought in.
that is one or two of the comments we had in the letter there to discuss deliveries, how that comes in and out, how they're accommodating that. So that is part of what they're working through, because it is comments we've had back and forth. That is a concern that we have as well, that it's coming into their property and able to maneuver and come back out.
Yeah,
And
well,
what they have
they've
to
taken
do
out
to the
curbs.
property
They
accommodating.
take curbs.
I know we're planning on going through the review letter. I think most of the questions and concerns you have are gonna be part of
Today.
the discussion.
Okay, well, we can come back to that issue after we go through our.
If there is anything that you still have questions on,
Well, property values is another thing. I know even in this housing market, I know one of the neighbors they definitely took an offer way lower, because they are literally right at the fence. Their fence is right at where all their activity is. So, I mean, you wouldn't want it in your backyard. You wouldn't. I'm sure.
Okay, let's go to item 4, old business, the Northeast product, which we have been talking about. We have a review letter.
so we can go into that, Rob. I don't know if you want to kind of run with this, with what concerns you have, and if there's anything along the way that you want to discuss when we go.
I guess at this point, so looked over the comments today, and we know we have to update the lighting plan to address the comments and provide compliance for agreement with the reduced levels that were permitted by the zoning ordinance, or by the previous variance, apologies. And the truck turning templates, I think we can work through that with you and Jeff to make sure that what we have satisfies the ability to maneuver on site. Other than that, I think the zoning issues have been, for the most part, addressed. I think from my standpoint, I'm looking at some waiver requests, and I think one of your comments was regarding fire and emergency services review, and I think when we were here last time that I think, Jim, you said that goes to them at final plan stage?
Yes.
Since this is a preliminary final plan, would it go to them now?
I can send them a copy, yes, that's not a problem.
Right, I mean, if you want, I can forward it to whoever as well and do the back and
Okay,
forth.
I can send you the emails.
Okay.
So you have the information.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Right, so from my standpoint, we had gone over the waivers at the last meeting, but there was no action taken because there was a number of zoning issues that we had to address. And I think everybody was kind of in agreement that the waivers were not of an objectionable nature, but we had to sort through the zoning issues first before the planning commission would act on them. So I guess from my standpoint, unless it's something that you guys want to discuss, I'd like to discuss the waivers at some point.
I don't know if there's any comments that you want to address specifically, but I think one of them that we could, and I think it's just to bring everybody up to speed a little bit, because the property against the Fleetwood property, or I guess the boundary against the Fleetwood property is what I kind of want to bring up. Right now, there is some steeper areas that they have a retaining wall proposed. On the property boundary side, they're proposing a vinyl fence in that area. There's a buffer and then the retaining wall. I should say there's just an offset where the retaining wall is more onto their property. Outside of that fence, they're showing trees in that buffer line that to the extent that ordinance requires, it's showing that they'll meet that as far as what needs to be provided. The question is, in that area where they have the vinyl fence and that retaining wall, I think it may only be about a 5-foot area, but is there a need, or would the planning commission see that they should try to put in a vegetative buffer or anything in between that as well? The zoning officer seems to think that that might help with some of the noise.
You talk about arborvitae or something like that.
Yeah, some of those.
That'd be something similar to that, to something that's not gonna overgrow that 5-foot width. And as he said, any
Okay, you're also talking about, I think you meant the height more than anything, but
Yeah, I think it was, the height they can plant whatever might be able to grow in there, and I think that the higher the better. I mean, it seems to be that the green giant arborvitae is the ones that most people plant in there, and it just seems to take off and keep going. But, the fence itself, for the definitions in the zoning ordinance, because that was closer to the property boundary and they're cutting that back, it's a less non-conforming issue. So the idea of putting an additional buffer in there really meets the ordinance more than it was previously. And that was part of the discussion we had last time. How would that get viewed by the zoning officer? And that was actually going back to the original plan they submitted. That's how it was viewed, and that's kind of the ongoing interpretation. That the way they're adjusting that and the buffer they're adding, it would help add a little more. But the question is, would we want to see that vegetative buffer go all the way across the property boundary or not?
that would be the south side.
That would be the.
the north side of the radio fence. Yeah, so the north side's the one that runs directly along the back of the borough line.
That's the,
okay,
long
this-
property.
So the left side as you're looking at it from crisscross.
You're gonna continue all around with it, right?
It's buffering the requirements for buffering of the parking along any residential area. So they really are buffering along the front and the sides of the two residential properties at the front of their property, and then down along the residential portion to block off the parking. It doesn't continue down through to the back of their property. But the screening is really for ordinance for the parking area.
Okay, the back would be you're talking about towards the athletic fields, I guess.
Yeah, towards the back, that's technically not buffering any residential, it was open space.
We're not sure where it's going in, but anyway.
Yeah, I think that's about this close from the township acquiring that property for a Parks and Recs operation, that's what they want to do. Unfortunately, the paperwork's still dragging.
Am I allowed to ask a
Yes.
question? So your homes in Willow Crest, they're going to see this parking lot on their way in and out? Because they're driving on Rhino. You're saying that back section of the property isn't going to have a fence?
I don't think that has any
No.
buffering there
That's-
currently. And
It is showing up.
it's going off of the requirements of there, I mean,
Yeah, no,
we can ask for that to go in, but it's going by with the requirements of it.
yeah. And those
It's
are,
showing buffer here.
I mean, you had a property in there for $1 million, I can imagine you would.
That was installed as part of Rhino Drive for that residential development when that went in. They put in that buffer of pine trees as part of the Willow Crest development. Their property boundaries, north of that, yeah, right there.
And we have nothing, well, I call that south, but I don't.
That's south, yeah, they
Yeah,
don't have that
yeah.
along that.
North.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to find that. Portion where it talks about the buffer. It's required, the property is required to be screened, and this is the parking area, screened from all sides due to adjacent residential uses. Unfortunately, there's a open space park area that's being, that kind of buffers between that and the residential properties. They are in the view of this, absolutely, but it's,
Are you guys opposed to screening along that north side? Bringing that all the way down?
No, I mean, well, that's the purpose of the fence. I mean, there's gonna be screening along the north side, it's just where the retaining wall is, we're proposing a fence, simply because,
But that fence is only gonna be 6 foot high.
right,
How tall's the wall?
excuse me?
How tall is the?
Oh, you know, I don't honestly know right now, I don't
I think
believe
they're-
it's,
there's a 5 foot,
yeah, I
It's
think
on
it's
there.
about 5 or 6 feet, so,
at the most.
yeah.
So that would make your fence at all effectiveness a foot tall?
Right, so I mean, again, we're not opposed to adding some additional, you know, arborvitaes or something that's gonna, like you said, if you put those, they can grow up to be 20 feet tall and provide a visual screen that's gonna be a lot better at sound dampening and obscuring the view of the property from the adjoining parcels.
How about 12-foot fence though?
12-foot fences don't really work too well for the most part.
I think you get into needing a variance for that because the township only allows for 6 foot high.
that can do sound dampening?
You gonna cattle fence?
So what was that?
Do they make any type of fence
I
that
don't
can
think it's
do
like
sound dampening?
Oh, that-
Even 6 foot?
I mean, any type of fence, like anything, any material does sound dampening because it absorbs some of the sound. The more material you throw in between, the less sound you generally have. So,
But if you have a 5-foot drop right before it's 6-foot fence,
Right.
you're not gonna take any sound.
not much at all now.
So we can't ask them to put an 8-foot fence there.
I think the answer is, I don't know if that screen is, that part of it is gonna ultimately, it will for a portion of it at the end of the walls, but it may be dropping to the point it's not gonna,
Yeah, I think.
it's not gonna
fence is the
accomplish the
best
same
way.
screen. You think the higher fence, or you're saying the
No.
screen, the adding more vegetative, yeah.
Yeah, as I said, we're not opposed to that. It makes sense to me again. You know, the vegetative material does a better job at well, I can't specifically say comparatively from whatever vinyl fence versus arborvitae, but it will do a decent job of, and it will grow taller over time. The more time goes by, the taller it's gonna be, the thicker, and it's gonna be in the better job it's gonna do screening. So, we'll add something in on the updated plan to show some additional vegetative screening, in addition to the fence.
There were discussions with the zoning officer and coverages as shown. I think we're still looking to have more conversation with them on what trucks are coming in, how do they maneuver. At this point, what they submitted, there still needs to be a discussion on what they're proposing, is it adequate?
Okay, that's for your office?
Yeah, we're still going back and forth on that. They did have a meeting with the zoning officer to go over a couple of things, the paving. So the paving is still a question on, is there paving proposed in the right locations? And it really kind of depends on what the trucks are coming in, how they're maneuvering around the site, and is it in the right spots or not? Some of the parking locations and deliveries and that are still ongoing, but as they had said, Robin said, they're working through that. As of right now, the plan's not ready to be acted on for that reason. The lighting's still on its way, so. Generally speaking, he's looking for a feel from the planning commission on the waivers. I don't know if there's. To the point of the noise, and sorry, just to jump back in on that one, the noise, if there was an ongoing request on that, I will follow up and see where that stands. I didn't know some of that was still ongoing, but yeah, I can find out.
I mean, the gentleman that I spoke to on the phone was kind enough to tell me that, like, they had left the fan on. It was gonna be on for a whole weekend. It was 4th of July weekend. And I called them Thursday, towards the end of the day, hoping that it would get shut for no Friday. And he says, oh, we gave our guys off. Sorry, I'll send somebody over to shut that off. And he said he was gonna put it on a timer, which was appreciated. But it's, you know, it's just noise that you normally don't hear.
There would be a possibility of a different type of fanning system being used that wouldn't have that kind of noise. You know, some fans are very noisy.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, if it's a complaint that came in and I mean, there is an
Some of
ordinance
these
for
grain
noise.
grind fans just had a whine you hear through the whole neighborhood.
The point is, if the decibels are still under our requirement, they're legal, so.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's been verified or yet.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you
That's
are,
one
we
of them
have to
we
check
gotta
it out, I don't know.
Well, it's quieter than the excavator beeping, so it probably isn't against your ordinance, you know? So it's not like it's it's like a cement mixer all, you know, all day long. So I'm sure the decibels are not exceeding.
Is that in, do you know which building that's in? Is that in the main building or the one that's
Well,
close?
As far as I know, it's all one building. It's like a huge pole building. It's in the back, which is high up on the hill with the noise coming down to all of us.
So if that was a complaint that came in before, it should be looked into, and if they haven't verified that, I mean, if it is an issue, then it needs to be addressed prior to any expansion, and then the expansion would be, how are you staying at that level or reducing it, depending on what the results are. So I think that's gotta be resolved as part of that.
That's something for the zoning officer to look into.
I'll be sure to check on that one and push that for the good of this plan.
Where are we landing with item number 2, that as far as exceeding the 50%? Right, because in your letter,
So that came down to when the original plan came through, the building itself.
but there was a bunch of outbuildings that they were considering because those are going away.
Yeah.
Right.
Just
So-
one.
There was the existing building, which is at 13,479 square feet. They did have a existing building closer to the northern property line. That was about 1,100 and change, I can't remember. That was considered part of the overall building coverage for the operation. So those were the two that as they did the expansion, they're only allowed to expand 50% of the existing use. So it's the combination of those two. Now, one of the things came up was there were 2 storage containers that were on the property that have not been issued permits for those. Those are technically not permitted, however, they are what triggered the land development submission to say this is more than just a zoning permit. If you want those to stay, you have to submit this, disclose what we're doing here, and the building that is being added on was reduced to make sure it accommodated being able to keep those storage containers on the site. So that expansion was maybe 8,500 on the first set of plans. That is now 7,789 to accommodate that 50%. So they've disclosed where those building coverages are so that we can verify that. So that's what
So we should be in compliance, a short version.
Okay, next issue, where are we going?
So, unless there's other items on the zoning review that wanted to be discussed in a little further detail, I'd rather, unless somebody has a concern to talk about, if they want to revise it to try to address these comments, it sounds like that's what they wanted to do here. So that would put to the subdivision land development, page 5. One quick comment, Rob, and it was in the planning commission letter. They talked about the way they phrased it had to do with the water supply, and it's in the Muhlenberg Township Municipal Authority's groundwater source. The developer should contact them.
We did that, and they said they have no jurisdiction on, we are not anywhere of any concern for them at all whatsoever. Yeah,
And you're in coordination with the water supplier.
so Fleetwood Borough's involved in our discussions with sewer and water. I haven't, still haven't necessarily nailed down, we haven't got clear guidance from the municipal authority as to, we don't believe that sewage planning is required for this project. If it's not, then we don't need a letter of service from the borough. They already have an existing water service to the building, and they don't foresee needing any additional volume for this expansion, because it's not, a large number of people that are gonna be added to the site.
And they did, I think, as of today, finally clarify that if there's a connection to the public sewer from this building, they would rather see it go towards the Willow Crest development and tie into that
Right.
sewer system. There's a question of do they need to go out to the front, that crisscross, and tie into the sewer there. They finally got direction today to the back. Now there's details to be provided on that end of it. The township's got to work through that park area, and is what they're proposing fine? Can they work around that, or should it be shifted? And that layout is ongoing as well. I mean, everything's kind of got to fall into.
That's from their authority, right?
The authority has made the comments as far as the sewer and the connection to, and is that the best location? They basically said, yes, they're working through the details, or they will work through the details now that they've gotten that. The township has to see where this sewer line falls as in location to the possible proposed park. So that is something that I think in the next month, 30 days, somewhere in there, I think they're really trying to get that squared away for possible grant submission. So
Is there somebody who's in charge of that process then?
I think
Grant writing, you mean?
I mean the acquisition of the property, I guess.
That would be Grande. Grande is, we're waiting on them to sign all the paperwork, because all the paperwork got sent up to Grande, and we're just waiting on them to sign everything and
Okay.
send it back.
Right, so the paperwork has already been put
Yeah.
together and given to them. I guess, is there a possibility that I could look at the park layout? I know I saw something briefly, and I don't remember where it was, but I don't think I got a copy of anything yet.
I can talk to Robbie,
yeah, the
find
town,
out.
Because I mean, I can do an overlay with whatever you have proposed there to show where our line's gonna run, and then get some feedback from
yeah, I
Bobby
do.
or
I
whoever.
don't know exactly how set in stone the
Um,
layout is
I
yet.
know, but I mean,
I don't know, but yeah,
Yeah,
Robbie and Jen have been coordinating with, who's the
Watkins.
Watkins.
okay,
So,
all right. So,
yeah, I think we can,
yeah, I mean, I fully realize that everything's fluid because you don't keep it on the property yet, but I mean, obviously, as part of this, I think we're gonna have an easement across the township property, so
Mhm.
we wanna pick the place that's least likely to be where you wanna put something
Yeah.
else.
Right, right.
Since
that
it's-
layout hasn't changed that much since the last time I looked at it. It's probably pretty close.
No, yeah,
My guess is trying to parallel as close as you can to Rhino.
And that was kind of what we did with, we brought it up over the property line and then just parallel Rhino up to tie it in.
I'll see if there's electronic copies, I can send those to you, Rob.
Okay, thank you.
So are we looking at a waiver now for the 1 inch equals 30 feet?
Yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable with doing the waivers now or generally giving them an idea, if you're comfortable or not, I don't know if you'd have to make that decision now, but I know he would be anxiously awaiting whether or not that's something you consider or not. So it is the preliminary / final submission is kind of how we've approached this. A waiver of the preliminary submission separate from the final.
Is the board
Sorry.
ready to do that? Give me some word.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, those waivers aren't gonna change the plan, so I don't see an issue with.
Right.
It's not gonna change the design.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, if you guys want to do it, let's go with the motion.
So I'll do, number one, the preliminary plan.
Okay, we have a motion by Matt, seconded by Ben. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. Now, the next waiver.
The other one was right there next to it, the scaling
Oh,
to allow the 1 inch equals 30.
yeah, okay, we did the first one, yeah. Okay. So now we're talking about the 1 inch equals 30 feet.
Typically, and it would help make the plan a little more legible. It was never an issue.
Yeah.
That's
So what's the feeling of the board?
I'm fine.
I have no problem.
Okay, Sam, you move.
I move.
Second,
I'll second.
Matt seconds. Any discussion or question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried.
As we go through the page 6, there's still just ongoing, as we said, sewer, water, the agreements. They have gotten comments back from DEP. I think it was on the submission of the plan. So it's really the preliminary,
Yeah,
I got scoping stuck in my head. What do they call them?
the NPDS permit review, as we have our preliminary review, we got our technical review. We're essentially at the point where we can wrap things up and get our NPDS permit. The last thing that we need is to make sure that we're showing the sewer line in the right place, because once
We
it's
have
permitted,
these two
can't
waivers.
change it.
Yeah, they would be the next ones.
Okay. Number 4 on page 7. Waiver of 36 inches between the bottom of the facility and the limiting zone. Explanation of hardship. What's the hardship?
So we're limited by what the soils will support on the site. Essentially, we're going to be testing out there to see where the different limiting factors are of the soils that are out there. The site just is not, the soils don't go deep enough to provide that 36-inch separation. What we are providing is compliance with the 24-inch separation that's required by DEP standards for stormwater design in the state of Pennsylvania.
In my opinion, it's similar to what Buckley is saying. I think DEP updates their requirements a lot more often than the township has. And that one is, as Rob explained, tied to what the soils allow and what they're typically seeing, and they allow up to 24 inches above that limiting factor as opposed to 36. So they're complying with the DEP requirements, not necessarily the.
We're not going to sit here and say DEP don't know what they're doing.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Just-
You can say what you want to say.
Just for,
On this one.
it's a modification, not a waiver.
Yes, I'm sorry. I still put it on
Thank
there.
you. Okay.
Just because we can't waive stormwater, it's the same outcome, but just the language.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for that waiver number 4.
I'm like 50%. Yep, modification. Sorry.
Okay, modification. Got that. When did you turn it on?
A while ago.
Yeah, I know. Okay, What's the feeling of the board? Sounds like DEP already did it, so,
I mean, I'm fine with it.
okay, Matt moves, Ben seconds. Is there any discussion on that question? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Okay. Allowing the basin water to completely infiltrate for longer than 24 hours. An explanation of hardship.
Again, it's similar to the previous relief. DEP standards dictate that all stormwater runoff shall infiltrate within 3 days. Generally, the provisions in design for dewatering periods usually started off with West Nile virus. They wanted to have basins drained in less than 4 days, which is the average gestation period for mosquitoes. After that, things evolved and they moved it up to 3 days or 72 hours because they felt that was more in line with the average 2-year storm, which is a 2 to 4 inch of rainfall in a 24-hour period. And they generally don't happen any more often than every 3 days. So if you have a smaller storm, which is the majority of the storms that we have, the water
That's
should still,
excluding this year.
well, the majority of the storms that we have generally fall under that category. Every once in a while, yeah, you have ones where you get 5 inches or 6 inches. Those are the larger storms, but the smaller ones, the idea is that the water would drain out before the next storm hits, so that way you don't have to worry about excessive ponding, which might kill off vegetation and or allow the gestation for invasive species such as mosquitoes.
Okay, board, what do you want to do?
And so what do we need the modification or waiver for?
Modification is to allow us to dewater the basin within 72 hours as opposed to 24 hours.
Our ordinance says 24.
Right. The basin says 24. We want to do, we're proposing to do it in less than 72.
It's another one of those rules. DEP might be on that page already, we're just not.
Yeah, I think there's some of the ordinance requirements here that help to try to meet both DEPs and those requirements, because they just haven't been.
Okay, I'll move what we approve that. Do I have a second?
I'll do a second on that.
Sam seconds, any discussion or question?
We have discussion to have.
I was just curious, with a 24-hour, that's a Richmond Township? And where is that? That seems-
Our stormwater management ordinance that was probably enacted in early 2000s.
Yeah, and as Robert said, things definitely evolve differently along the way, and why that was a 24.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if you've made exceptions like in the past, or let's assume that couldn't be a problem for any project.
Yeah, that's
That's a common one I see.
unfortunately, if we were to get in any kind of a ordinance modification, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to update some of these just to bring them up to speed with.
Okay, Ben, you satisfied? Okay, we're satisfied there. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Now, I think we're gonna approve, well, we sort of did already, to go from preliminary to final, but there gotta be conditions. We wanna make sure, once the fence,
I think we want to hold off to see a couple more things from that.
okay,
Yeah,
that's easy. That's what you want.
yeah, I think
Everybody agree?
Where are we with time?
there was an extension to December.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we do have need some extra time already.
So we're good till December?
Yeah. I guess a quick question, do you want to see the waiver or modifications for stormwater listed separately on the plan? Because I've never actually listed them as modifications, but do you want me to list them as modifications approved as opposed to waivers?
If you're making other revisions,
I mean, I'm gonna be making other
Yeah.
changes.
I just don't want to.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so they have to come back to us with modifications we asked for. And once the fence, of course, and a couple of other things.
Yeah, there's parking lot and the
Right.
truck turning that we have to
So
make
you
sure.
two will be communicating and you'll tell him when he's ready to come back, right?
Right. Essentially, we can't come back next month because you guys are on a 28-day review cycle, so more than likely you'll end up seeing us in this is August, not September, October most likely, probably be seeing this here again.
Okay. So we finished with this?
If someone could explain that last new comment.
Oh, that was simply, I was trying to say it in a way that they knew exactly where I was going with that. They just have a graph of the storm sewer, kind of follows the typical path that a truck was coming in. And they stopped an inlet short, showing it going into the pond, but it actually went another, was it 150 feet? There's just some mislabeling on the one graph.
It's an easy plan change.
So what you're saying is it's spelled out in micro minutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
We like to use acronyms as much as possible.
Yeah.
It saves a lot
Okay.
of time spent talking.
So apparently you guys got some work to do.
We do.
Come back and we'll talk to you in October, yes. Thank you.
Very much.
Okay. Hawkstone Village. I don't even know where that is.
well, it's a new one.
Do you
And
want to
it's
see the
not-
plans?
Yeah, I think if we put them out.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Rob.
Rob.
Thank you.
So just a little before the last board meeting, the engineer for this project forwarded a set of plans and some additional information. In Fleetwood, there is I don't know how
You're
to.
talking the post office area, right?
Somebody may be able to describe this better, but when you're heading Main Street through Fleetwood, as you take the bend where the grocery store is there on the corner,
Linden Street Park.
It's out
Across
of
from Linden
Boyers?
Street Park.
is that Boyers right there?
Oh, sorry.
On the east end of Fleetwood, just before.
Oh, crispy crunchy chicken?
Oh,
Is that
the
what you're
east
ta- I'm
end. Oh, you're talking
sorry.
Okay, east, that's going towards Decca. I'm kidding.
Find the right location you're describing. Here,
Am I doing it wrong?
this will show up here.
Right?
Yeah.
Here's, as you're leaving town,
Tarsus Manor.
this development back here, I don't know what the name of the Fleetwood developments are.
You're coming up to, going to the railroad underpass.
Yeah.
I didn't even know there were 2
You
acres
turn
back
back
in there.
here, there's, I don't know what you call that residential development.
Overcross.
It's kind of. I don't know how you describe it. Again, the Fleetwood area there, I can tell you, what is the grocery store there, right in town? Where it takes the sharp left? Is that the?
Well, you're talking about the little convenience.
Yeah,
The
I'm sorry.
crispy crunchy chicken.
That is what it's called.
Yes.
And
And then, and
Or you
it's
could have said the old Sunoco.
Fleetwood, is it Fleetwood Market or something like that? There's a little tiny convenience store there too.
my Fleetwood knowledge is
Yeah.
pretty shot. I can't.
It's
be the
east
one- I
end.
should not be the one describing this. But if you don't follow the main street there, you take a right and head into the residential development that's just beyond that.
Okay,
There
so
is
you're
a-
heading towards the railroad track. I think.
Is it all on Locust? Near Tarsus Manor is at the end? Do you
I
know?
have no idea what any of them are called. I don't know Fleetwood for that.
What do they want?
The Locust Street.
What's that?
What do they want?
So they're building several apartments in that area. And how many is this?
This section.
This whole area here, this is vacant.
Okay.
And they have 28 townhouses.
Guess I'm taking a drive tomorrow, I'm not sure.
Yeah, they don't give you much as far as names or what it's called. Yeah, Brian Beckley is the owner, applicant, Farino. Farino is gonna be building these, and C2C put the plans together. C2C was asked to provide a courtesy copy of these plans to the township. I did not have a chance to look at these or discuss it with the board meeting. I wasn't even at the board meeting, so it was gonna be difficult to do that. I spoke to Chris Hartman on what approach should we take here. I don't necessarily think the traffic coming out of this is gonna affect the township roads that much. You have 28 townhomes, and they could turn out onto Dryville Road, but they could also go straight into Fleetwood and go that direction. So the amount of traffic that would hit that road, it's not gonna cause any kind
This
of
would be
traffic stuff.
technically within the Fleetwood Borough.
Yes, so
Because
The
the
reason-
Fleetwood Borough actually goes across that piece of land, farmland there.
and then this one right here is the reason why
This is the
I'm,
corner that John Burke corner has at.
there you go.
This corner here
It's just a
belongs to
field.
John Burke, to the
Okay,
Schlegel
yeah.
farm.
Oh, okay, now I know
It's
where
right
it is.
over
It's up on
against-
top of the hill. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
I can't, I couldn't help more than I did, and it wasn't, I was going the wrong direction.
Don't come to.
I believe you, I just couldn't confirm or deny.
So Locust and Dog.
Okay, I know where it is. I farmed up next to that for a long time. So. Yeah, and it's no man's land.
This plan shows you that everything they're putting in, this site is all going to drain to this detention facility here or stormwater basin, and that releases into that field that Burkholder has. There's also another pipe that goes here, and as I believe it, it's gonna be anything that's draining from these other houses that already drains through. They're gonna bypass that and put it here.
We have basins down there,
Well,
right?
the stream is over here. Where does the stream come through?
So they're,
Oh, that's further out.
and their discharge point here, I thought it was right on here. Oh, it's close.
I mean,
It's right here.
I
It's
can
all
know
right
the
here.
water comes down across those fields, something terrible.
The, does it really?
Oh, yeah. I farmed that land for 20 years.
There's no water problems in there.
Yeah, it's never a water problem. Yeah, I know.
Well, you know what happened out at Weavers?
Mhm.
Same hills there. I mean,
No,
just
I
up,
do.
brother.
And that, so ultimately, and I apologize, it took us that long to get here. The thought was to reach out to the developer and on behalf of the property that's within Richmond, do just a quick cursory review on our end of the stormwater to make sure that we agree that the Richmond resident isn't receiving water worse than it was, or
So in other words, if Barrow's gonna approve it, we just gotta make sure we're happy with it, right?
we would like to approach the developer and say, on behalf of Richmond Township, can we do a cursory review of the stormwater to make sure we're in agreement with what we're doing here? And the idea is to have the planning commission recommend that to the board, and then I'd reach out and talk to them.
With the understanding the developer will pay the fees for the.
It must happen. I agree.
And that's what we'll do. I mean, I also, and that's, I don't think it has to be part of the motion there, but I kind of want to reach out to the Fleetwood Borough engineer too, and just get on the same page.
I mean, if anything's gonna be built there, I seen that property for many years, there's nothing there for weeds.
Yeah, it seems like it's
I
just
mean,
making.
it's,
And water. We lived across the street from that many years. It fills with water.
well, you put the weeds there.
Yes.
No, okay. Yeah, I know where they are now. Sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry about that one. I tried. Sadly.
Okay, any comments? I mean, I think we all agree we're gonna,
So we need a
take
motion
care of that water.
to request from the builder or the developer and to contact the borough.
To recommend the board waive review with the condition that the developer allow Scott as a township engineer to review the stormwater and pay the fees therefore.
Okay, do we need a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay, I hope the recorder got what Michelle said. Okay, thank you, Michelle. I'll entertain a motion to present that letter to the borough on our behalf and hopefully address the situation. Do I have a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Matt moves.
I can second that.
Okay, Ben seconds. Any discussion or question? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no? Motion carried. Okay. Any miscellaneous business?
She was just asking if she could see the plans.
That you were so nicely looking at this big, huge, like to see.
And we still didn't know where we were going.
No, not those plans.
Oh.
I don't care about that.
Oh,
We don't live near that either. We live near the first set of plans you were looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anything to discuss on what we did this evening? Okay, does anybody have any comments about meeting time? We left it open last meeting to discuss.
Oh, that was right.
If anybody wants to discuss it, we'll get it in the minutes.
They did value your opinion, Sam. So they helped.
I noticed it was on there, I just didn't know.
Sam
what
said he
this-
couldn't get done milking cows.
Yeah. Well, in the winter time, there's no problem with that time because.
Well, that's what I sort of said at the
in
meeting.
summer,
Like,
usually when we
you
might
go
be
too early, why?
Even then, half an hour, I wouldn't have much of an issue on that. 'Cause,
This would be for next year as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we're not gonna.
Yeah, we're not changing anything until next year.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I know.
I wouldn't want to
Oh,
go
I
more
would
than half
make
an
it a
hour.
little early for sometimes in the evening because considering when
Yeah.
you're done with work in the evening, supper time and so forth, but.
You know how that works.
On the other hand, if it's 8 o'clock and I can go home and do another hour's work afterwards.
And maybe you can get volunteers. Anyway,
Okay.
okay. Thanks for the comments. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if you're ready to do that.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Sam moves, Ben seconds, I hope. Yeah, okay, thank you. And any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? Motion carried.
You can look at the plans and you just submit a right to know request first.
She's gonna get it.
Yeah, she's gonna get the form.
Okay. I remember before coming to the borough when they were building Willow Crest, and I just looked,
Yeah,
it
the
was
lawyer
brought out to
wasn't,
me, as long as I didn't take pictures or anything of
I'm
it.
trying to think
the
about
lawyer
it.
wasn't sitting in the room with